is everyone today? Y'all look so good. It's so good to be here. And thank you, Chad and the digital ministry team, for asking me to come talk about one of my favorite things. Besides Jesus, it's podcasting. So I didn't know that I was going to become a podcast host. My son came home from college one day when I was in the middle of writing The Struggle is Real, But So Is God. And he said, "Mom, you need a podcast because you can talk." And the next thing I know, my family bought me a microphone. I moved it around my house because I was like, podcasting, what? And then the next thing I started, and the only thing that I wish that I would have done is that I would have started it sooner, because when I started podcasting, I found my people. We're going to talk about podcasting and how to grow your audience today. But before we can talk about growing an audience, we have to talk about some foundational things before we can do that. So where am I supposed to aim the clicker to make it move? Okay. All right, yay. All right. Podcasting is a powerful digital ministry tool. One of the things that I love about podcasting is that I can get behind the mic in my home and I can speak to people all over the world. We have a global audience with podcasting, and so that's what makes it a powerful tool. It's also a very intimate, personal medium because people are choosing to pick the podcast that they want to listen to, and then typically they put their earbuds in. And so that space between the microphone and the listener, to me, is so sacred. And so I want to make sure that every time I get behind the mic that I'm honoring God and stewarding it well. So this is the foundational stuff that we have to talk about. You can start a podcast because you love Jesus and you want to talk about Jesus. And that's great. We should all talk about Jesus. I think everybody should. But if you're just going to talk about that, you're not going, if you're just like, my podcast is for everybody. Well, no, it's not. So you need to define who your people are before you pick up the mic. You need to know your ideal listener to produce content that solves their problems. So when I first started out, I had a blog and it was called By His Grace, that's became my podcast name. And it was very generic. I'm talking about Jesus and grace, which is lovely. It is so lovely, but who cares? Really, when I started talking about podcasting, everybody perked up. Because at that time, everybody wanted to know, how do you do a podcast? And that is, it's knowing your target audience and creating a felt need. So the felt need for me was podcasting as opposed to just Jesus and grace, right? So you want to make sure that you know your audience and that you are creating content that your audience needs. So do I have any authors in the room? I've got 1, 2, 3. Okay, when you write a book, you have to define your target audience. When you start a podcast, you need to do the same thing so that you can create content that they actually care about. Because people follow people, and you'll grow your audience because they know you, they like you, and they trust you. So you want to create brand authority by positioning yourself as a subject matter expert and by creating podcasts around a felt need or a specific topic. Like I mentioned, when I started podcasting, there were so many people that wanted to know how to do podcasting that I didn't have to try to grow because people wanted it. So the more I talked about it, the more they wanted it. So how do we find out what people want to know? I mean, how do we know who our audience is, and how do we do that? There is a tool that I like to create. So we want to create, I don't know what's wrong with my slide. We want to create targeted content online, and that shouldn't look like that. What it should say is it should say answerthepublic.com. Are any of you familiar with answerthepublic.com? One person? Okay, y'all, I'm about to change your world. Answer the Public tells you everything that people are searching for online. And if you don't know, once you create let's say I'm going to create a podcast about podcasting. Well, I need to know what the pain points of the people who are creating a podcast, what they are. I can go to Answer the Public, I can type it in, and it will tell me all of the questions that people are searching for on Google. How do I start a podcast? What is a podcast? Should I do this kind of podcast? And then it gives you all of those search results, and it gives you all of these questions in a way that you can take and consume that information, and then you can use that information to create targeted podcasts that meet your audience needs. So when you produce amazing content, and that's the key, you have to produce good content, because if you're not producing good content, you're not going to attract listeners, and you certainly won't grow. You also need to show up for your audience consistently. People want to know that they can count on you. You become the friend that they tune into every day or every week or every month. But whatever that rotation is, you need to be consistent. When I first started out, I started on launching episodes on Tuesday, and every Tuesday for an entire year, rain or shine, we got an episode out. And people developed a rhythm with me so that they knew, and if for some reason, like it was Wednesday or late Tuesday night, people were texting me like, when's the podcast gonna come out? So showing up consistently will help you to attract more listeners. Okay, so now we're gonna do a fun little activity. So this is my amazing husband and his big bad beard. I want you all to pull out your phones. So everybody pull out your phone and hold it up for me. Okay, so I don't know how many Apple people we have here or how many Android people we have, but if you have an Apple phone, I want you to find that little symbol. This is how you find podcasts. And it's important, I want you to pull it up. If you have an Android, I want you to pull up the Google, because what I'm gonna tell you next, I want you to see what, it's gonna drive the point home. So when you create a podcast brand, you need to create a graphic that is appealing to people. When you're looking on the podcast apps that you're looking at now, you have this like a teeny tiny bit of real estate to catch someone's attention. And so you want to have your picture on the podcast, because if you're a host, you are the brand of that show, and they need to connect with you and with your face. You also want to create branding colors. You need the name of your show, you need the name of the hosts, and it needs to be simple and easy to read. If you scroll through those podcast apps, there's a lot of people that put a lot of junk on there. So you want to make sure that you've got a good podcast brand. Now, while you're there, if y'all will hit follow for my podcast, that's how you grow a show. All right, so you want to launch your show with a 1 to 3 minute podcast trailer. This is your sizzle reel. This is what hooks people in. And the other reason why you start with a podcast trailer is because of the listen through rate. So if you want to rank your podcast high, that is all, it's not based on the number of episodes you have, it is based on your listen through rate and the number of reviews that you have for your show when you first launch. So you want to make sure that you're giving them enough information that hooks them in the very beginning without boring them. But also, if it's short, like 1 to 2 minutes, they will listen through, and that will help your rates go up. You can also do this at the beginning of a new season. You can do it at the beginning of a year. If you're running a special campaign, you can do it at the beginning. All of those short, quick episodes will help to drive your listen through rate up. Okay, then reviews. Reviews are important, like I said, when you first start, because that's how they determine your ranking and where you're positioned on the podcast charts. But they also serve as social proof. So you always want to keep asking people to review, because when someone comes to look at a show, if it's got 5 reviews, or they look at another show that's similar, and it's got, hundreds of reviews, they're probably going to listen to the other show that has all the reviews. So it's not that it helps to rank it or anything like that after the show is launched. It's just social proof, and that's important. Okay, now we're going to start getting into some more specific ways that you can grow your podcast. You want to make sure that you have a website for your podcast and that you're driving your traffic to your website. Don't drive your traffic to Apple. Don't drive your traffic to Spotify. They love you to drive your traffic there, but you need to be driving your traffic to your website. That gives you an opportunity to offer your other products and services, and it just helps to drive that traffic, right? Which is important. Now, the next thing that you want to make sure is that you have an email list. This is important so that you can contact your people. And so you want to create a lead magnet that is something of value. I don't know about y'all, but I don't want to give my email to anybody. I have way too many emails, so it has to be something that your target audience really wants. And this is the resource that I have as a lead magnet on my website. It's Create and Grow a Stellar Podcast. And it takes you through all of the steps to create, launch, grow, monetize a show, and I give it away for free. And so if any of you would like that, just scan the QR code and you can have that. Also, the slides are going to be made available to y'all so that you can get access to that. But the point is you want to give away something that is of value to your target audience so that they'll get on your list so that then you can share your information and your podcast with them. Okay, y'all, my slides are messed up. I don't know why, but this is use social media to leverage your podcast. You want to follow social media trends. I know Nachi was in here this morning and he shared all kinds of amazing stuff with y'all. But you want to share your podcast on social media, and there's a couple of ways that you can do that. So you can tell people about your show, your guest can tell people about the show, and some of the tools that I really wanted to share with y'all are audiograms. So an audiogram can either be a still image or it can be a video that's like a short clip of your podcast that you can put in Reels. You can use it on YouTube Shorts. You can take this one big piece of long form content, break it into smaller pieces, and then put it out in the various platforms. So I love to do that with a tool called video.ai. And be careful, it's not video, but when you type it in, it's going to try to make it video. So it's VIDYO, video.ai. And what I love about that is you can take your short little video clip that you have, and it will brand it and break it into smaller clips that are in all the different sizes for all the different platforms. And so in addition to creating great content that goes out in a podcast, you also want to leverage social media to attract new users and to grow your show. But y'all, this is my absolute, hands down, favorite way to grow a podcast, and that is through collaborations and cross promotions. So collaborations are, to me, are king. We are all, I think I can speak that everybody in this room is on Team Jesus, right? So we need to figure out ways that we can work together because we are not the enemy, and we have a very real enemy who is coming after us and our families. And so we need to work together. But the beautiful thing of this is I have worked with other podcasters to promote their shows, and the more I promote other people, the more God blesses me by living very open-handedly and finding strategic partners. So Chad and Digital Ministry Conference is a strategic partner of mine. Glory Stone Apps, then I'll show you that in just a second, is a partner of mine. Pray.com. So find people who are good partners and figure out ways that you can work together. Advertising on podcasts. If you want to grow a podcast, people that are listening to podcasts are going to listen to other podcasts. So find shows with similar audiences that you can do an ad swap with, or that you can pay to have your show on their show. Because instead of just paying for generic advertising, either on social media or through Google, you're actually reaching a podcast listener. And so advertising on other podcasts is a no-brainer. Okay, this is fun too. Creating merch for your podcast. So t-shirts, hats, mugs, stickers, all the things. You know, DMC is out there everywhere. But let me just caution you, don't just brand your podcast with your name and your stuff. So I'll give you an example. When I wrote The Struggle is Real, but So is God, I created a cup that said The Struggle is Real. Because, y'all, the struggle is real, but so is God. So it was the name of my Bible study, but it was also a phrase that people identified with. So find something that is related to your ministry, maybe just not your name or your brand, but what is something that people would identify with that they would want to carry around? Because then they become your biggest fans, and then they promote your business for you. So when you think about your branding, yes, you want your name, but also think about other phrases or things that you could use. So for me, like anything that's podcasting related for my podcasting people, like if it says I'm a podcaster, they're going to love that. They love Spark Media, but they're really going to love something that says I'm a podcaster. So think about that when you're creating your content. So one of the ways that I have partnered with other content creators is by doing giveaways. And this has been really great to help grow our email lists. So several podcast friends or author friends will all chip in. We'll do a giveaway. I've seen my email list grow in the thousands at a time by strategically partnering with other podcast hosts and authors, because you're borrowing each other's platform when you do that. So you come together to do a giveaway. It could be like a lot of times we'll all pitch in on an Amazon card. Make it something that people really want, and find partners that you can partner with. And that is another great way to grow your podcast. Okay, this is what I was talking about with directories. So there are several main directories. I think everybody knows Apple and Spotify and iHeart and Stitcher. Now YouTube's in the podcast game. Rumble just got in the podcast game. But did you know that you could also have your own player that serves as a podcast directory? So this is my podcast network for Spark Media. If you go to sparkmedia.ventures and you go to the network page, this is my podcast directory. On there you will see all the people that are in the shows that are in the podcast, the Spark Media, sorry, I can't speak, that are in Spark Media. You can listen to them. So right there you see my shows at the very top. You see a God Shift. Her YouTube channel's on there. Her podcast is on there. This is through a company called Glory Stone. And so instead of directing people to Apple or Spotify, I direct them to my website, and they can listen to all of these different podcasts at that one place. So you can also, besides just creating a podcast, you can create your own network of podcasts. Then you have lots of opportunities for cross-promotion and visibility. So the other thing is attend a podcast conference. And if any of y'all would like to attend my conference that I host, I've hosted it at the NRB for the last 2 years, but I'm bringing it back to Houston this fall. In September, we've got a QR code for you to join us. We're looking for partners that want to get in front of podcast audience. So maybe you don't want to start a podcast, or maybe you want to write a book. We've got a lot of agencies that are going to be there, literary agencies, a lot of Christian communicator stuff. We're also looking for partners who want to sponsor the event. So if you want to do that, but if you want to be a podcast guest, you need to know other podcasters. So attending a podcast conference is a great place to network and meet other people. So this is me, would love to connect with y'all online, all things podcasting, and I just appreciate your time today. And sorry, I tripped on my words a little bit. My slides were messed up, but it's all good. If you have questions about podcasting, I'm going to go hang out. I got a little table out there. Would love to talk to you if you're interested in starting a podcast, growing a podcast, or monetizing a show. Those are the things that I do every day. So would love to talk to you. Thank you so much.